Hey guys, I'm Hot for TFBTV, and I finally got my hands on a Palmetto State Armory Dagger 9. There was a little bit of disagreement around the TFB offices as to who would be reviewing this gun. James and I are both big Glock fans, but I like cheap guns a little more than he does, and he's my little brother, so I get to boss him around. So let's take a closer look at it. The Dagger 9 is Palmetto State Armory's first foray into the budget handgun market. It's a mid-size, double-stack, striker-fired pistol with a standard magazine capacity of 15 rounds, very similar to a Glock 19. It also takes Glock magazines and Generation 3 Glock 19 slides and barrels and spare parts because it's a Glock 19. Gen 3 Glock 19 clones are certainly not a new idea. The Gen 3 Glocks came out in 1998, so the patents have been expired for a few years now. Everybody with a CNC machine already makes Gen 3 Glock parts, and several companies also make Glock-compatible frames, like Nomad, Timberwolf, and Polymer 80. This allows you to build a Glock using exclusively non-Glock parts, so instead of buying a factory Glock and then spending money customizing it, you can build the Glock you want from the ground up. Or you could build a Glock with the different ergonomic qualities offered by aftermarket frames. Most pre-built Glock clones on the market right now are built on Polymer 80 frames, or slightly modified P80 frames. Lots of them trend a little more upscale with fancy slide milling and optics cuts and upgraded drop-in triggers. The PSA Dagger is not that. There are some departures from a stock Glock 19, but it's still pretty basic and cheap. This one is the fancy green Cerakoted model, which runs $350 on PSA's website, but the basic black version comes in at $300. The Dagger 9 doesn't use a P80 frame, although it's pretty close. We'll talk about that more later. Ergonomically speaking, the grip shape of the Dagger 9 is pretty good. I find it to be a little bit more comfortable than a stock Glock, or even a P80 in my opinion. The edges are rounded so it doesn't feel quite so brickish. It has pretty good traction with a gentle sandpapery texture on the front strap, back strap, and the sides of the grip. The grip has a very slight suggestion of a finger groove, though not enough to make anybody upset, I don't think. As far as the shooting experience of the Dagger 9 goes, it's pretty much like a Glock, but more so. The mag release is slightly extended. Again, nice feature. I usually put extended magazine releases on my Glocks. The slide release is standard. I would like to see it slightly extended. That's a modification I do to all of my Glocks. It's like a $10 drop-in part. There's a frame cutout on the sides of the grip, which does seem a little bit odd. I don't think it's really needed to strip magazines, and it seems like you can get hung up on the cutout when inserting on the reload. The sights are 3 white dot steel sights, perfectly adequate. I was shooting this gun side by side with another pistol that had blacked out serrated sights. Those were really good for shooting slow fire groups onto bright target paper, but they were really bad for seeing through the glare of mixed sunlight. That's where high contrast sights like on the Dagger really come in handy. Probably most guys looking at or shooting a PSA Dagger for the first time are going to fixate on the trigger. The trigger isn't upgraded so much as it is side-graded. It feels a lot like a stock Glock trigger, except they've used a hinged trigger safety mechanism like a Smith & Wesson M&P instead of the Glock-style safety blade. It still feels like a Glock trigger. It's got the same take-up characteristics, the same break, the same reset. If anything, it might be slightly more comfortable because you don't have a trigger blade safety protruding from the face of the trigger. Either way, I don't really care. I just can't bring myself to give a shit about pistol triggers 99% of the time. I don't think anybody is buying a cut-rate Glock 19 clone to shoot high-level competition with, so that's not what this is for.
Probably doesn't help we're trying to shoot a half salute 50 yards.
Yeah, this could be better. There it is. It's left edge of plate again. Or maybe I'm just a left edge of plate shooter today. So we've talked about the good and the neutral, now we have to talk about the bad, reliability. Just in terms of feeding and cycling, the Dagger was flawlessly reliable through just a shade under 500 rounds. That's what I have through the gun so far. A typical mix for me of mostly 115 grain brass range ammo, some 124 grain Federal Syntech, and a few precious magazines of Federal 124 grain HST plus P. So in that respect, the gun is fine. It's reliable in the way that Glocks are reliable. However, the trigger pin on my Dagger walks out over time. I have to tap it back in every 100 or so rounds. That's not something you can address on your own, and that's not something I would let go uncorrected on a carry or defensive gun. It means the gun will probably have to go back to Palmetto, and the fix is probably going to require a replacement frame. That means a new serial number, a new transfer, and that's a pretty frustrating process to go through. I'm pretty confident that PSA would take care of you if this happened to your gun. But if you're buying something as a defensive handgun, you really don't want to go without it while you diagnose reliability issues and get it fixed. Okay, so we had the good and we had the bad, and now it's time for the really bad, aftermarket compatibility. The Dagger doesn't use a Polymer 80 frame, per se. It has the old-style proprietary Glock accessory rail slot, just like a Generation 3 Glock 19. But the rest of the gun doesn't have the same dimensions as a real Glock. It's still pretty close in shape and size to a Polymer 80 frame. So you get the worst of both worlds. Accessories are more limited and more frustrating to mount, just like they were back in 1999 when they introduced the Generation 3 Glock 19. But you don't get true Glock holster compatibility, which is one of the primary reasons I will continue to stick with Glock over almost any other handgun design. Everybody makes holsters for the Glock 19. All of the best holsters on the market are available in a flavor that'll fit the Glock 19. The key dimension here seems to be the height from the top of the slide to the bottom of the trigger guard. I tried fitting the Dagger to a Safariland ALS light-bearing holster with a TLR-7 and a TLR-1. Neither works. I've tried light-compatible T-Rex Arms Ragnarok and sidecar holsters with a TLR-7. I can cram it in there, but it removes material from the holster. You could probably just keep doing that till it breaks in, but I'm not going to ruin a perfectly good holster by stuffing a PSA Dagger into it. The one holster I was able to get it work with out of the box was an old Blackhawk Serpa holster. So finding the right light to mount on this gun is going to be a project, and then finding a holster that'll fit that light and this gun is going to be an even bigger project. I don't want to hear any comments about Serpas, Blackhawks, Tex Grebners, any of that stuff. Unless I shoot myself, then fine, go for it. It's definitely possible you'll spend quite a lot of money trying to chase down that perfect configuration so you can actually use this thing in a carry context. So that's why I have to ask the question if the PSA Dagger is really that great of a value. It's a pretty decent gun, and you do save a few bucks over buying a factory Gen 3 Glock 19. The normal model runs about $300 on PSA's site. The Cerakoted slide version costs about another $50. Since it is an online purchase, you will pretty much definitely have to pay your dealer's FFL transfer fee. For me, that means tack on an extra $50. If you've got a line on one of those $10 kitchen table FFL transfers, you'll be better off than I am. But for me, that means I'm really not saving all that much money versus buying even a Gen 5 Glock 19 over the counter. And what we lose is holster and accessory compatibility, we have potentially shaky reliability problems, and some odd ergonomic choices. I think if they made these guns optics ready from the get-go, that would increase the value proposition, but the holster support still worries me, as does the trigger pin repeatedly trying to take a suicide dive out the side of the frame. Mostly, the Dagger just feels a little bit late to market. It's largely a clone of a handgun design from 1998. It missed the single-stack Micro 9 craze, the double-stack Micro 9 craze, and the optics-ready craze. It's like 4 generations of handgun development behind the 8-ball. Still, I think there are people that this will appeal to, and as always, I remain impressed by PSA's commitment to putting arms in the hands of as many responsible citizens as they possibly can. I don't know if this is the right gun for you, but hopefully this video helps you decide. Anyway, that's our show. Thanks for watching, guys. TFBTV is supported by our sponsors, Ventura Munitions and Top Gun Supply. We are also supported directly by our viewers like you via Subscribestar and Patreon. This channel would not be possible without all of our supporters, so thank you very much, and I'll see you guys next time.